What is good, everybody? What is good is Big Game James. You know what? I'm back in these streets. I'm back in these Cowboy streets. And you know what? We got a little guest today. We've been going back and forth. It's kind of my fault, so I'll go ahead and take the blame on it while we couldn't hook up. But I got my guy, Mr. Danny Phantom, uh, writer with Mr. Writer with Blogging of the Boys for a long time. And we've already had a show before, probably about maybe about last year, or some time ago. It was a really good show. But we're gonna do it again. We're gonna talk front office, some Kellen Moore, some Cowboys, and all that good stuff. Before I keep talking about it, kind of introduce yourself, a little bit of background, and then let's kind of get at it.
Yeah, well, it's always nice talking with you, James. Yeah, I know we have a lot of back and forth on Twitter. We don't see a lot of things the same way, which actually, is pretty normal for me because I'm not the every fan when it comes to my views on the team. But I have been writing with Blogging the Boys. I just finished up my 10th season over there, so I'm still there at the moment. I mean, a Cowboys fan as long as you have, for 40
Mhm.
plus years now. So we know this team very well. So it's always great to have these conversations, especially when there's so much discourse with everything going on in Dallas. So I look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, so I definitely I feel you. You know, we're definitely going to talk about some things, but let's first things first. You know, people coming in the streets. Shout out to you, Marcus Short Dog, Big Benny Rich, JJ the Mime, Talk Yo Talk Media, Matthew. Keep on coming in the building. Shout out to you. You know, we back in these streets with Miss Regina. She was in here earlier. Keep on coming in here. Make sure you do. Um, so, I mean, first of all, let's talk about. I mean, the obvious Washington Commanders played yesterday against the Detroit Lions. You know, I'm gonna be very honest with you. Um, I wanted to tweet this, and this is on the honest to God truth. I was like, what if the Lions lose today? And what is everybody to say about this ballyhoo, Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn has been the talk of which I like Aaron Glenn. I don't think they would have a shot with Ben Johnson, but I think do like Aaron Glenn. And my thoughts really didn't change because of this game because I did kind of see it like they didn't have nothing to lose, so you play with a different kind of play. But what was your thoughts about this game as a whole, Washington, Detroit, and how do you kind of feel about it with the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was surprised. I was expecting Detroit to really just, smoke them. Um, a couple things I want to say about this. First off, and this is kind of me going back to the same kind of defense of our own team. I don't like put too much into one game. It's Detroit is a great team. They still are. They turn the ball over a lot. I think that when Goff got his clock, cleaned on that when that on that when it
Greg
got
Lulu?
blocked. Yeah. So I mean that I feel like things were just not going well for them. I think they did a lot of good things. Sometimes they got a little cute, but you know what? I'm not going to ever tell Ben Johnson to tap the brakes at all. So it's just one of those things where Washington played better. So I don't. Detroit's going to get a lot of heat because top seed got bounced, whatever. Big deal. I don't think too much about that. It's one game that they're sampling tells me a lot of good things about them. Washington, I will say this. I mean, I've been a big Quinn fan. I really wished that he would have stuck around versus Mike McCarthy. I've had lots of debates about that. I think Dan Quinn is a great leader of men. I always liked listening to him. He says he likes to do hard stuff with great people, and I just think that he's taken that culture to, and instilled in Washington. Washington, they have a great quarterback now. They got some things. So sadly to say, I think that the Commanders are going to be a thorn in our side for a while because with Jaden Daniels, and with Dan Quinn. So I'm proud of Quinn. I'm proud of the Cowboys that are on the team. Not obviously not a Commanders fan, but I'll probably be rooting for them next week because it's likely to face another nemesis of ours with another one of our coaches. So it's crazy, but that's what I think about last night's game.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about the Dan Quinn thing. You said you're an avid fan of him. and you wish it would have been him instead of McCarthy. And I understand that, a lot of people point to, well, the Green Bay Packers game, that defense didn't play great. And we saw in periods of games during his tenure, even though Dan Quinn, and I like Quinn, I knew they were going to hire Quinn when they ushered out Mike Nolan, because I will say, whether you say it or not, I feel like the Cowboys do go for one of the splash coach, and they knew that Dan Quinn had a name with the Legion of Boom, and they wanted to have something like that affiliated with the Dallas Cowboys, and I know that's why they went after him. But his that defense was created by Gus Bradley, and he came in on it. So I will say that. Now, when Dan Quinn came over here, we saw the tenure was awesome. The turnovers, the sacks, had one of the most productive turnover ratios in those 3 years in Cowboys history, right? But there were critical games where that defense would get ran through and critical times. But as a whole, when Dan Quinn, compare Dan Quinn to Mike McCarthy, when I see Dan Quinn go over to the Washington Commanders, you say, well, I wish he would have stayed in Dallas. I ask you this. When he goes over to the Commanders, it's a new ownership. I want to ask you, do you think that Dan Quinn, even if they would have drafted a Jaden Daniels, just your opinion, and still kept a Daniel Snyder there, and he was still there, and those things going on, do you think they would have had this kind of year?
Well, obviously the answer is no, is because when you have moving parts, things change. I certainly think there are a lot of things that go into a team success, and obviously the ownership and the direction the Commanders have now is much improved. So all those things play a role. I'm not saying Dan Quinn is the savior. There's a lot of things. I mean, credit to Kingsbury as well. I mean, people are a little sour on him because didn't have a great tenure in Arizona as the head coach, or at least didn't finish that way. But great offensive mind, does a lot of good things. Top offenses this year. So he had that going for him with Jaden Daniels. A lot of talent in other places. Washington as a team, they had some strengths, and collectively they were a good group. So Quinn deserves credit because I think he collectively just kind of pieced everything together and knew how to use things. And you saw the Commanders; they just played with so much fight, and it was a fun game to watch. I thought they were in trouble when that little fourth down little goof thing with Mariota. It's like, you know what, this is not going to go well. They got to have everything go perfect for them, but that's not the case. They just were constantly coming at them. And I do think that is a Quinn influence. But to answer your question, it takes a lot of those things to really make things work. And so, no, I do not think it would be the same if he was under different management.
And I think that's what's the point where I say, where I get frustrated with the Cowboys front office, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Because when I look at the Washington Commanders when they were the Redskins, and now they were the Washington football team, in that tenure between with Daniel Snyder when he took over the team, I believe it was 99 to 2023, had 9 coaches. I mean, he had coaches like Mike Shanahan, who won 2 Super Bowls in Denver, who never had the kind of success in Washington. I believe dysfunction. You had a lot of things that were going on that were always in the way of really being able to do what you wanted to do as a coach. Distractions. So when I see that, and when he finally gets moved out the picture, you have a new ownership. You have guys who say, we understand this. And we all understand a lot of teams, when you get a new coach, new ownership, you're going to hit free agency hard because you're going to have money because you haven't been good. You're going to have more money to be able to do the things you want to do. But to the point of you go get key free agents, I don't feel like you overspend it. Dallas could have got Bobby Wagner. They chose not to do it. I think Dan Quinn wanted them. Dallas didn't get linebackers, and it cost them in playoffs, in my opinion. That's front office things. But when we see the front office basically doing those things, having a good draft, the ownership says, okay, we're going to make this plan and we're going to step out the way. You're not really going to hear about us. We're going to let the coaches do what you're going to do. And we're going to let Dan Quinn be the coach. We're going to let Dan Quinn do those things that he wants to do. Now, you telling me that if he was in Dallas and it wasn't Mike McCarthy, they would have gave him that free reign, and they would have totally just backed off and let Dan Quinn be the coach and Dan Quinn make some of the big decisions.
Well, totally backed off is never something that Jerry Jones is going to do. So the answer is no. But I think I want to dig a little deeper, James, because I know
Okay.
you have issues with the front office, and so does most people. But I really want to ask specifically, like, give me. I want some examples that, like, some things that you really think that Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones or Will McClay, whatever you want to call the front office, is doing that's a detriment to this team. Like, what are your biggest issues? Because I would like to talk about them. Because maybe I agree on a lot. I probably do more than you think, but then
Okay.
I know there are others that I do not and have a different opinion altogether. So I would like to,
And I would like to hear those too, and I'll give you mine.
so what, like, can you give me a specific thing? Like, what really irks you about the meddling that happens, or what do you think that's really when he comes in and has some input on the team, and what bothers you the most?
I think the thing that bothers me the most is the lack of sense of urgency. I think that's the thing that bothers me the most. When I see other organizations, there's a clock that ticks. Okay, your owner, you're not the owner, general manager, and president. And that's only one other owner that does that is the Cincinnati Bengals. And what has been the issue with them, notoriously cheap. Mike Brown has been notoriously cheap. You've had bad things. I've been out here in Ohio. They've had evil things that have been going on with that organization, bad things because he always wants to stay in the way and meddle. And that's one of the issues. But like I said, the biggest thing is the lack of sense of urgency for me because you don't have anybody pushing you. Jerry doesn't have anybody pushing him. Steven doesn't have anybody pushing him. So when you have like an organization that says you have to come in here and you have to make it work, and if you're not making it work, you're probably going to be gone in 3 years. All right. That's not the case in Dallas. They don't have that clock that's ticking. And because of that, I don't see the sense of urgency. We're going to build this our way, this our slow way. Like Steven said, we're not going to overspend in free agency. We're going to build through the draft, sign our own, which I would like to talk to you about because I don't see a lot of that happening as well. We're going to draft our own, sign our own, and sign, some keep free agents basically. Um, the free agency part, in my opinion, as well, and I can name some bunch of names because I got the free agency pulled up here. I feel like they're a day late and a dollar short in free agency. You got a Linville Joseph, with a Mike Zimmer. You picked up uh the guy from the Buffalo Bills and he was with the Giants. I can't remember his name right now. It's gonna come up in
Phillips.
20. Yeah, Phillips. Those guys were available years ago when they were at their peak and they still were affordable. You get guys, there's a lot of in their 30s, 32, 33, and these are on the downtrend of their career. Like I said, a Linville Joseph, a Kendricks, although he had a good year, it's not the impactful year that you say that really turn the corner for the Dallas Cowboys defense. You get them when they're downtrending, not when you feel like they're in a spot where they can really help your team now take you to the next step. I feel like Dallas waits until they become more inexpensive, and then they try to blend them with the team that they already have. And because of that, that comfortability, other teams are passing them while they're saying, well, we can continue to do it this way because we think it's going to work. When it's showing year in, year out, things are not working. You keep having undrafted people playing in key spots. That gets shown in big games, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you said a lot of things, and I'll try to address these as you went along. So sense of urgency. First off, you're right. Their owner, general manager, he's never worried about his job, and then that's never going to change. Something that we have to deal with. That's a fixed thing with the Cowboys. So there's that. Also, I think what you're hearing too when you talk about sense of urgency, I feel like you're kind of saying, I really wish the Cowboys would mortgage more of their future resources, like a lot of other teams do, into this year, um, rather than trying to budget. Like they're a very well budgeted team in my eyes. Um, so you'd rather just use some more future resources to kind of do things now, have that greater sense of urgency. So, and you're right, the Cowboys don't do that either. That's not how they operate. They really try to give themselves a good chance year in and year out. They believe that they are bringing in talented players. I sort of agree with them because I see a lot of talent on this roster year in and year out. But I think the biggest one is what you talked about last, which is free agency. Um, Sadly, I am like really on board with how the Cowboys operate. You're not going to like this, and everybody who knows me knows this already. I won't say that it's exactly how I do it because I do think they're a little too thrifty, and there are some other things I would like them to address more. But when you go down the list and the players, I mean, they're also with Kendricks and stuff. I just think that I really think that the Cowboys do a good job of minimizing their losses when it comes to free agency. Free agency is a house game. It's a game you're going to lose statistically. You are going to lose. Now there are teams every year that are winners that will have success and they'll end up having players that help them and make an impact and outperform their cost or play to that level. But those are small in comparison to all the losses that most teams are experiencing in free agency. So, and the Cowboys are more in the middle, or they're more of the break-even type with small little. If you look at Kendricks and a lot of the little free agents they get, they end up actually overplaying their small cost. So I like the way the Cowboys build their roster. I like the way that I think they're a great drafting team. I think that's been proven, even though people will point to certain things that they do not like about them. That's fair. They're not perfect by any means, but I like the way they go about it. They make, they try to make the right investments in the players they keep. There are good players that are going to leave, and we saw some of them last night on the Commanders. That's going to happen, but that just speaks to just how well this team drafts. But when you look at the Brock Hoffmans and you look at the I mean, you could just go down the list of players that this is what I want. I want low cost guys to fill the depth while the Cowboys pay. Because I love CeeDee Lamb. I love Dak Prescott. I love Micah Parsons. I want those guys. I don't want the Cowboys to not ever have to pay a legit star, someone that's a little harder to find than your Dorrance Armstrongs, or your Tyler Biadishes or something. So I like the way the Cowboys go about it. Do they do everything right? No. Should they spend a little more in free agency? I would like them to, even though I'll accept that as a loss because it is a loss. People need to understand that free agency is a losing investment. If you don't understand that, then I don't know. You're just trying to play with someone else's money, and you don't care about what the results are. You just care about how it makes you feel. That's what I think a lot of fans get caught up in. And I think if you really think about it, while it's far from perfect, the Cowboys go about things a lot more responsibly than people give them credit for. And it's why they are a team that is able to compete year in and year out. So I have no complaints about how they do that. Um, and that's kind of been my position for a while.
So you say they have great drafts. Where can you say they have great drafts in your opinion? Where has been their last great draft in your opinion? Because let's start from 2016 when Dak Prescott got drafted.
Well,
When
that
you
was a
look
great
at the
draft.
Okay,
But,
well, why was you had Dak Prescott, you had Ezekiel Elliott. Um, I'm not going to count Jalen Smith.
don't
I
count them.
feel like but you got Dak Prescott and him out of that. When we look at 2017, what was
Well,
great about that draft?
so 16, yeah, I think you had Anthony Brown came in there. I mean, I don't have the
Anthony
list in
Brown
front
was
of me. I'm
service.
trying
He
to
was.
remember.
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Is
While
Malik
while you're talking.
Collins was your third rounder, I believe. Malik Collins.
But you
Um,
drafted him, and you said you draft and sign your own, and he basically only had one deal because he was let go.
that's
He was
fine.
let
I
walk.
mean, you're not going to be able to retain everybody, but that's
But he
still a
would have
good.
been cheap. He would have been cheap. He wasn't an expensive player that when he left and he went somewhere else, he didn't get signed for a big contract somewhere else.
That's correct. The Cowboys believed, and whether they were right or not on this, is that they can find a three tech that can do similar things than more affordable. I mean, Malik Collins was not like a game record by any means. I mean, he's been a good
Oh
player in
yeah,
his.
I
But
understand.
if you look at the ones they brought in, even Gallimore had a couple decent seasons. Obviously, Osa's been really good. So they've been doing a good job of like cycling through with the three techs. Now the nose tackle, different story. They haven't been able to do. That's one area that's been a problem for them, and I would like to see them go ahead and eat the cost of free agency to try to solidify that group. But I think overall, I don't have any issues with letting players like Malik Collins go or Neville Gallimore or other players like that.
Right. Okay. So if you are letting those guys go, and you're really, but that's what I'm saying. When we are talking about the draft, those guys weren't difference makers really with the team. Melville Gallimore wasn't a difference maker with the team. You're saying
Nope,
you're okay with the draft, and you're saying those were good. Dallas are having good drafts, but Melville Gallimore was not the impactful player in Dallas that we thought he was going to be. So that's why it was okay for him to walk. So evidently, it was not a great draft pick. If you look in that 2020 draft, when you talk about Neville Gallimore, you had C.D. Lamb and Trevin Diggs. C.D. Lamb has been all world. Trevin Diggs has been good. But now he's having issues, but he had a little bit of issues before he even got signed, right? But Gallimore, Reggie Robinson, Tyler Biadasz. Biadasz had a good career in Dallas. I
That's a great
can't
draft,
fight
James.
Biadasz.
You're telling me you're reading off a great draft to me. I mean, this is
Bradley and Nye's a great draft. Ben DiNucci, Reggie
not
Robinson.
everyone,
What?
but you're talking about three Pro Bowl players, two All Pros already in one draft. That's a good draft. I mean, maybe your
Okay.
expectations are a little higher.
No,
If
no, no. My expectations are higher. I'm just going by and saying when you're mentioning those players, because I'll go down to 2019. Are you going to say 2019 was a great draft? Yeah, Tristan Hill, Connor McGovern, Tony Pollard, Michael Jackson, Joe Jackson, Donovan Wilson, Mike Weber, and Jalen Jeffs. Was that a great draft, or was that a
no,
good draft? Okay.
subpar.
And then we look at 2018. Yes, you had LVE. Connor Williams had a decent career, but none of these players are with the team. If you're talking about draft and signing your own, the Michael Gallup was not a good signing with the re-signing because he had the knee injury, and we all kind of understood that. Why did you sign him after the knee surgery? And it really hurt the team because now he was out the league within a few years after that. So that wasn't a good re-signing. And a lot of people were saying don't do that ahead of time, but the Cowboys still did it and it was a contract good for them.
Yeah, the gout thing. A lot of people said that great for them for being able to understand the severity of his injury and how that would turn out. I didn't know. Pre Gallup, I'll tell you what. If Gallup, like a lot of players who do suffer those injuries, return to form, that would have been a great deal. People, I mean, if we had the regular Gallup, that would have been a great deal. Nobody would be talking about it. But because of the result of it, and it's unfortunate for him, and I feel bad. And of course, he's not in the league anymore. But those things happen, and the Cowboys they've been on the wrong end of those things, and they're not no Notre Dame, and they can't get everything right with that. But you have to look at the thinking behind it, and that's the part that I try to judge them on. So, but I mean, you're listing players, so there are some stars and there are some contributing players, and I think when you're getting that out of a draft, more consistently than most teams, you're doing a good job. So you're not going to have all great drafts. You're going to have bad drafts that are just not great. I mean, and we just have, recently we can point to that, but I do think overall, when you look at it, they're bringing in good players, and I think that they're one of the better drafting teams. So I can't give them any bad marks about that, even though the Neville Gallimores or the Dalton Schultzes that walk, even Tyler Biadasz, who's a Pro Bowl player, walks away. I don't fault them for drafting those players, using them, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I don't fault that either. But when you come around and say they drafting really good, I counteract that and say I think they're drafting okay. I think they're a good drafting team. For them to say they're the upper echelon, they've had some good, decent drafts as of late. But to say they're consistently drafting year in and year out as, hey, this is a good drafting, no, it's not really happening. Because if you look at 2021, you got Michael Parsons, right? Beyond that, that was a draft where you had like damn near 11 picks. Kelvin Joseph, you missed on, and you shouldn't have did that because there were red flags. Okay. Osa Ogunazua, you hit on that, but here's the thing, and I can counter when you say draft and sign your own. That's a player that you had the opportunity, and he might have outpriced himself to get ahead of it and sign. And we say a lot of times the Cowboys wait and sit on their hands. Where I talk about how they do it their way and they take their time. This is a player, in my opinion. Do you think Osa Ogunazua should walk?
I would have liked them to try to re-sign Osa last year. Personally, that's my feeling about Osa. I think he is one of those players that's a little bit different, and like you can't just find Osas all the time. I don't know. I don't know what that would have cost though. Osa would probably command a lot of money, so that's a tough one, James. I don't know. But I wanted to say one thing about what you said because we have different opinions. I think the Cowboys are a great
Uh,
drafting team. You think that they're just okay. I would encourage you to go out there and look. And there's some good data out there that just shows you in comparison to other teams and how far you want to go back. If you want to go back 5 years, 10 years, you'll constantly see the Cowboys in that 2 or 3 range. They're one of the better drafting teams, regardless of they're not the best in everybody's view, but they're consistently seen as one of the top 5 drafting teams in the last 15 years. So I mean, if you go back and look, I think you can see that in maybe you're remembering things that's like it doesn't feel that great to you, but when you really compare what most teams get out of the drafts, you'll see that the Cowboys actually do really well in that area.
Well, I know what I'm saying is I'm not going around saying they're a great draft because a lot of people say that, and from what I was thinking, you were like, oh, they're a really good drafting, great drafting team to me. I will say they're a good draft. I'm not saying they're okay. I'm gonna say they're a good drafting team because if they weren't, they wouldn't be able to compete in the teams even when a Dak Prescott goes down because you're those are a lot of your picks that you have playing and they still keep you afloat. So obviously they must be good players if you're still competitive in the NFL. You're not instantly going to a 4 win, 2 win, 3 win team when a big player goes down. Except we saw 2020, but that was like just a weird COVID year. But I would say Dallas is a good drafting team. When a lot of people say, "Oh, they're great," no, I don't say they're no great drafting team because I see a lot of things that they miss on. Like you just said, the defensive tackle, they miss on that position. The wide receiver position, they got CeeDee Lamb, but who are the other great drafting receivers that they had drafted in recent years? They haven't been really good at drafting receivers. Okay, so I can say they haven't done that. When I say let's look at the tight end position, it's gotten better. Dalton Schultz has left. He if he was that good, you should have worked out a deal, in my opinion. Um, who has been the tight ends that you've had? Where they've been good to me has been offensive linemen. They've been great at that. I think they've been pretty good at defensive end and picking those positions, and um, decent at corner linebackers too. Uh, so I don't think they're bad. I just feel like a lot of times when I hear that they draft and say draft and sign their own, I wonder if that's really happening. Because like I said, Osa Okedizua is a guy you could have got on early, and he should be a foundational piece, and you should have been able to get on him early. Those type of players you should do that with, and they didn't do it because they're slow footed. And I feel like, oh well, let's go ahead and do a compensatory pick. But when you're getting these picks, are they impactful players that you're using for these compensatory picks? I don't know.
Yeah. I want to touch on something that you talked about just briefly, but I see a lot of people, in the comments too. And this is one of the narratives that goes around it with the Cowboys front office that I really take issue with. And this is the Cowboys, they just take too long in signing players. And whether you're talking about Osa or even CD and Dak and everything, I think people need to understand that first off, it's very hard for teams to win on deals. Like you're not going to really get discounts on star players. If you think that people always say, well, if they just would have signed CD a year sooner, he would have cost like 31 million per year or something. You have to realize that CD Lamb has an agent also. He's not going to be snookered into just taking less than his value. So CD Lamb is going to get his value, and Dak Prescott is going to get his value. There's no discounts to be had. Now, if you can find a player like, say, Jalen Smith or Terrence Steele, I'm throwing these names out there. They're not great examples, but if you find a player where you can think you can get a little ahead of it, where you can get them a little cheaper than what you think they're going to be, then you can pounce on that. And the Cowboys have. That's risky though, and the Cowboys are actually paying for some of those risks too. So I want to make it clear
But
that
it's a
it's
risk. But it's a risk. Like if you did that with Jalen Smith, you already knew that was a risk. And me personally, I'm not saying that you're trying to get a discount from these guys. I'm not saying that these get ahead of them so you can get a discount. No, I know what the market is. I know what the high end players are getting in the market. I'm saying you already know that man is probably going to be one of your centerpieces. So yes, he's probably going to cost some money. I know that. But get ahead and go already get him signed so you can move on and look for other things while he is already signed in the building because now you let him play out. He had another damn good year. Now some other team who's going to say you're they're too risky. Well, they're going to take that risk and they're going to sign the Osa Ogadizua because they may already have a good defensive line and they say, you know what, this might be the piece. So yeah, we might overspend a little bit because we believe he's that damn good and we already got a really good team and he could be the missing piece. So yeah, we might overspend a little bit just to get him in the building and it may pay off because it has shown it has the maybe the percentages. Maybe I can agree with you. The percentages are probably not that great for that happening, but the risks are when you're playing in the NFL. There's going to have to be risk taken. When you look at Jerry Jones, when he started this out, he didn't start out this thing being conservative and winning that way. He started out this thing being going hard, making moves, making decisions that, hey, sometimes you're not going to like them, but we took the chance. And I'd rather you take that chance and then you make it happen because there's always some salary cap thing issues every year in and year out. Every team deals with it. Every team. The Rams, they dealt with it. I'm not trying to just use them as the throw off example, but they dealt with it. They went all in. They got smacked in the face. We saw them the next year. But now look, if they beat the Eagles, they're right back in the championship game. You go possibly right back to a Super Bowl. That's what I'm saying. It's a risk taking business. So I'm saying get ahead of the game, sign your dogs because you know this guy can be a piece for you and he's young. Get ahead of him and then look for those other players later if you want to do something. Why wait and then let him get outpriced and then you say, well, we'll just go ahead and get a compensatory pick for him. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, a couple things. I wanted to make clear that first off, the point I was trying to make is it's not costing the Cowboys any more money than waiting, unless you have a player that elevates their play, and now they cost more. And I will say this when it comes to players like Osa or Tony Pollard or I don't they've already made those decisions. They don't plan on paying them, so they don't get ahead of it. If they sign Terrence Steele, obviously he's one they're trying to get ahead of. If they let them go into their fourth year without a deal, they're going to go let them test the market, and if they don't get someone that offers them money, then they'll try to get them cheap. But they're not. They've already committed to saying, you know what, we're okay with losing them. That's just how. That's their decision. You may think that that's. I would have liked to keep that player versus them saying no. I'll just let them walk. But that's the decision that they made. So I really don't think that the Cowboys waiting is causing any type of problem. The only thing it is, this is the truth part of it. What it does do is when you wait to sign CD and Dak, you do not have that cap space to operate in free agency. So if you wait until the end of the summer, the fall before the season starts, then you don't have that ability. It doesn't free up cap space until then. So you lose all those opportunities to sign all those free agents you want to sign. But the caveat is the Cowboys never have any intention of signing those players anyway. So that doesn't even hurt them. So it just people
But it does hurt. But it does hurt in a way
it
because you're
hurt.
not out there trying. It hurts because we know Dallas is not going to do it. So yeah, that's what hurts us because we already know Dallas is not going to do that. That's why they sit there and wait because just like you said, they're never going to go out there and look for those free agents anyway. So that's why they take their time to sign a Dak Prescott or sign a CD Lamb. But it's like, what is the point of doing that? You could have had CD and Lamb in there earlier. Injuries took a part in his season this year. And I believe if you had him in camp earlier when you already knew you were going to sign him, you knew CD Lamb wasn't leaving the building. You knew that. You knew you were going to sign him. So you should have got go ahead and got out the way. So let him get into campus doing his thing. And yeah, you know he's not going to come cheap. What y'all thought? He's not going to come cheap. Dak wasn't going to come cheap. Those top end guys, Michael Parsons ain't going to come cheap. And I heard you say on your Twitter where you said, "Oh, he's a team guy." He even talked about giving a discount. You know, daggone well, Michael Parsons not giving the Dallas Cowboys no discount.
Absolutely, you're right. He's not. He shouldn't, and I don't think his agent will let that happen. But um, yeah, so and there's no value in signing Micah. People want him signed already. Why? It doesn't matter. Micah's going to cost what he costs. It's not. There's no discount to be had.
Yeah, I mean, and now also let's talk about since this coaching thing because I want to talk because you definitely a Kellen Moore advocate and I am not a Kellen Moore hater because I wasn't when I looked at Kellen Moore I was not one of those guys that were just tearing him up in the media. He had top offenses, he had top defenses, but I listened to something you said on your Twitter where you said you were curious where you hear the Garrett 2.0 and you wanted to say you're curious of why people say that and you wanted to get some answers on that
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm yeah and I wanted to give you my answer on why do I call him Garrett 2.0. First of all, it's just eerily how the Cowboys are doing it or possibly doing it is what is alarming to me. So when I look at the Dallas Cowboys, Jason Garrett, when he came in on the staff, obviously he was a player, backup. Kellen Moore backup. Just listen how I
Oh,
put this.
I'm hearing you.
Okay, so Garrett was a backup. Kellen Moore was a backup QB. Um, they all felt like they always felt like Jason Garrett had a good mind. That would always be kind of a good coach. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like
Mhm.
he wasn't going to be the most, he wasn't going to be that player physically that could really do it for you. But they were like, he's young. We'd like to keep him around the program because we think he's going to be a coach down the line. Okay. And then when I see when they had brought Kellen Moore over with Scott Linehan, he was the darling, even though he didn't have the physical traits. We saw what he did at Boise State. Okay, we
Yep.
saw that record. I watched him at Boise State in college, faithfully, because that's when I was really loving college football then. So I saw that era when he played. And when he came in, he was the new offensive mind. Okay, we got Kellen Moore in the building because we hear about this mind and we want to be able to have him. So that's where the similarity starts of how that started. And then when you look at Jason Garrett was a quarterbacks coach with the Miami Dolphins for 2 years, and then he came right on the Dallas Cowboys staff as a young person, hot name. Came over with the Dallas Cowboys staff, was an offensive coordinator, assistant coach, offensive coordinator for like what 3 or 4 years, and then he got his opportunity to be the head coach. Look at Win Kellen Moore when he came over, quarterbacks coach 1 year, and then next thing you know, he's the offensive coordinator next 3 years. Okay, so when you look at those similarities, the way they raised up Jason Garrett, that was their guy that they wanted to say he was homegrown, he was handpicked, and we want him to be the guy. And because we want him to be the guy, we're going to give him a little bit more time and resources to make it work because we don't want to be wrong with him. Now, you can say what you want, Mr. Dan, but I definitely feel the Cowboys feel that way. They don't like being wrong on things. They don't like being wrong. And if it's somebody they pick, they're going to give him the extra little bit more because they homegrown him. And I can see if they hire a Kellen Moore because it was somebody they handpicked, he went over there, had good offenses. Um, when we hear about the noise about it wasn't he just left on his own, that means, and I said everybody that they never wanted him to leave the building, and now he's over there in Philadelphia and they're winning, and Saquon Barkley has 2,000 yards. You don't think that Jerry Jones is watching that, saying, I want him right back over here, and we're going to give him the keys. I hear about Jason Witten possibly could be on the staff. Yeah, because they're going to mold him and the way they want, much like they did with Garrett. Now, if Garrett is so good, then how come he ain't coaching nowhere else in the NFL?
Yeah. So up until okay, so first off, James, your explanation about the Kellen being Garrett 2.0 is spot on. I mean, if that's your reasoning, I have no issue with it. I think you're exactly right in everything you said. I will add one thing, and the reason that they believe in Jason Garrett so much, and which is probably why they believe in Kellen Moore so much, is so these are really smart guys. Remember when you talked about Garrett being the quarterbacks coach in Miami for Saban. I mean, Saban had no intentions of having a coach, have a, but he interviewed Garrett anyway, and then just being in the room with him, it was something you could just tell about how he understood the game and how he articulated himself that just kind of drew him in. And that was the thing with Garrett. Garrett just captivated the Joneses. He when he was in the room, and we fortunately have seen some behind the scenes, so we get a good idea about actually what type of communicator that Jason Garrett is. And they bought into Garrett because he was able to convey the message that he wanted to get across very well. And the same is being said about Kellen Moore, and you're hearing the same kind of things about um, how he's coaches. So I think in that regard, absolutely same coach. I will also say this too: when you look at those strengths, being able to persuade an owner to do things a little differently than what they're typically used to doing. Remember, Jerry Jones used to be a riverboat gambler, crazy free agency
Mhm.
trade stuff, really reckless, and it was a detriment to this organization. And he really toned that down when Garrett took over on staff. So when you talk about that kind of 2.0, I am not. I don't have a problem with that. I like the things that Jason Garrett does well. I would love to recapture those. So I don't have any problems with those things. Please bring me that version of Jason Garrett back in there. I'll take those attributes of Garrett any day. Now there are other things that weren't good, and honestly, we don't know how Kellen Moore will behave in that environment. We don't know what kind of coach he will be. Honestly, I can't sit here and say that I love
Mhm.
Kellen Moore and he's going to take us to lead a Super Bowl. I don't know. I really don't
Mhm.
know. But there are so many things that about Kellen Moore that I do like, and if I'm going to roll the dice on a new coach, he's at the top of my list of coaches that I would like to have in Dallas.
And what is first of all, what is a positive? What is a what is a what positive does Jerry Jones bring to the Dallas Cowboys? What
Ooh,
positives does Jerry Jones bring to the Dallas Cowboys? I want to know from your
what
perspective.
positive does Jerry Jones? So I have to. So full disclosure, James. I mean, like I said earlier, I've been a fan as long as you have. So we've witnessed Jerry Jones and all of his glory, and it hasn't been good. I mean, we have to be honest. Like Jerry Jones, as a person, as a oh, I mean, there's just so much to actually not like about him, to be honest. And I could spend time talking about that, but I will say this: so he is a Hall of Fame owner. The way that he's deserving of that as an owner. It's just the general manager part that people take issue with, and for good reason. I mean, Arkansas, he played football, Arkansas, great football mind. As far as owners go, I'll challenge any owner in the league to know as much about football as Jerry Jones. But
Hmm.
that doesn't mean anything. That's as a general manager, he's he's lacking when it comes to other people who have actual general managers who know how to run football teams and build rosters. But thankfully, I think Jerry Jones, as much as I did not like him early and some of the decisions he's made, has done a lot. He's changed a lot, and I think I really love Will McClay, and we just talked about what we think of the drafts. Um, I put him up here versus what other people do, and I think it's you know. So to me, I think Jerry Jones. This is what he does. You asked me what he does well. He listens more. He listens to people, and he has more patience. He's willing to invest into what I believe are the right investments. Jerry Jones is also a very personable owner, and I don't know if this is a good trait or not. But people, his players love him. I mean, it's the Cowboys organization is a family, and I think that there are things that he does that are good and make people feel like they want to play. You don't hear about people complaining. I mean, former players will talk about how it's a little bit like a show, the tours, and there's distractions and stuff. But I mean, honestly, James, think about free agency that come here, and then like Malik Hooker or somebody that they were here. Okay, so they got a good feel for what it is. Well, did they resign? They did, and it wasn't because they gave them a lot of money. This organization is not something people want to avoid. And Micah
Oh
Parsons
yeah,
is
I
is
agree with
going.
that. I
Yeah,
agree with that. I agree with that.
yeah, he's going to bat for him right now, Micah Parsons, to say, you know what, we're big boys. This is our jobs. So I think there are a lot of things that Jerry Jones doesn't do that make
But
me
he's
like
he's
him
gonna
more.
he's gonna say that too, though. Dan, you know that he's gonna say that for his contract. He's gonna say he's gonna say whatever he wants to kind of get butter up to get that money too. So that's a smart thing from Michael Parsons, knowing that he's still gonna be a Dallas Cowboy
But
and
are,
get
but are
this.
you telling me you don't think he believes that though, James? I mean, you're right. It's
I
what's
think
led me to come to say.
I think because Michael Parsons is just a stand-up person. I think he's just a good person. He really wants to win. He really wants to play hard. He's just that type of person. Yeah, I believe that's what just who he is. You get what I'm saying? Like he's just that type of person no matter what. You get what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't really matter the organization. He's just that type of person. I'm going to defend mine. If that's why I'm going to be here, I'm going to probably be here the next 4 or 5 years. And I don't dislike this organization. I don't dislike Jerry. So yeah, I'm going to fight. You know what I'm saying? And I agree with you. I've talked to a lot of Cowboys players, former players especially. They don't have ill things to say about Jerry. So I don't say that about him. You know what I mean? I don't say what I'm saying is just like you said with the general manager part the, there's stubbornness there, and that stubbornness I feel like hurts the Cowboys in certain kind of ways. You say he listens, okay, I can say he does listen more as well because he's older now, but he's still stubborn in what he wants to do as far as the control.
Well,
And
can you
here's my thing.
give me a Jerry Jones decision? Give me one that you don't like. Tell me something Jones has done you don't like. Is he? What do he do? Is he? You don't think he's calling plays? I mean, I mean,
I don't think he's calling plays, but I definitely feel like the call comes from the house when you have somebody who is underperforming that's making more money and somebody who's not making more money. I do believe the call comes from the house that that player who's making more money stays on that field. I do believe that because there has been shown ways where La'el Collins was not the best player on the field and Terrence Steele was the guy who was undrafted and was playing better than him, but he couldn't get on the field. Now, I don't know who else that is. You just telling me the coaches are doing that and then all of a sudden Terrence still starts playing. I've seen where J. Ron Curse is not playing the best football at all, but you got a guy who comes back in from being hurt and he takes over a Marquise Bell, and clearly Marquise Bell is a better player. But Jaron Curse is staying on the field, and that's what your guy Dan Quinn is the coach. Is that the coach, or is that the people saying, "Well, Jaron Curse is making more money than Marquise Bell, so Marquise Bell is going to stay on the bench"? Jeff Heath, we've seen time and time again where players who are making more money on the Dallas Cowboys are still starting, where guys who are backup are playing better that don't get on the field. You don't think there's an influence from the front office on that?
No, I think that there's a lot.
I
First off,
disagree. I
I think
disagree.
first off, I think a lot of the things you said, I take the opposite view. First off, I think Terrence still played. I mean, he Collins got the boot. I think they made the right decision.
But
Um,
he wasn't getting the boot. He wasn't getting the boot. He was kept continuing to play until he basically played himself out of it. I mean, he
I think
played himself out of that
I
position.
honestly think they were trying to figure it out, James. I don't think they knew exactly because Lyle Collins was not too far removed from having a fringe Pro Bowl season, so there was a lot of debate about how good we thought Lyle Collins was, and it turns out that he wasn't that same player. And I think it took a little bit for them to figure out, but they did. They made the right choice. I think that outside this is what so I think the Ezekiel Elliott decision this year that I don't like, and that may be front office influenced. That I know if someone were to tell me that, I don't know that I would have the data to tell them they're wrong. That to me is troublesome because I do not like how they handle the running back position at all. But I think if you look at all the other things, I think when you look at Jeff Heath, he wasn't making any money. They do play players that come up and who deserve to play, and they don't always just play the money players. We've seen a lot of big time players get benched. I mean, people talk about the investment of Trey Lance. He's not playing. You talk about Domingo.
He was a
Where's he?
was he but was he a big time player though, Dan?
Well, he was
He
an
wasn't.
investment, a fourth round pick. I mean, they give up a lot for him. You want to see what he has. So, but
So
they
why
did.
didn't they play him? Why did they trade for him a fourth round pick and never played him? Is that a Mike McCarthy thing?
No, no, no. So it's the well, sort of. So they trade him for potential, and as he played, he never got to that point where they felt good that he was going to be the best quarterback on the field. It was still always Cooper Rush. So that's why he never got chances. And the same thing with Mingo too. Is we are like, why don't you play him? You made that investment, but it would have been irresponsible to play. If Mingo played more, then Jerry Jones is making decisions. But no, they waited and they put the guys that's going to help them be more successful. That's just so I think there's a lot of examples that actually counter what you're trying to say as far as who's playing where. So I don't think that's Jerry Jones meddling at all. Now Zeke, on the other hand, I think I don't know that it's meddling as much as I think they overvalued how good
You
Zeke
think
was.
you think Mike McCarthy wanted Ezekiel Elliott back? No, he didn't.
No, I don't. I think that they thought Zeke had a little more juice than he did. They brought him on here. They were giving him so they knew the offensive line was going to have struggles early. It didn't matter who was giving the ball. There's some things they got to figure out. You had rookies on the line that were trying to situate themselves and it was messy early. And as things start to improve, we saw like Rico Dowdle, good running back. Suddenly, if we had that all year, nobody would be crying about Derrick Henry or anybody. Uh,
Rico
so I,
Dowdle and Derrick Henry are not the same, and you know
they're
that.
not the same, but you don't need to have a Derrick Henry, and you could get by with a Rico Dowdle. Honestly, James, if you
Yeah,
if
you can get by with a Rico Dowdle just like in this draft. I don't want Gianti from Boise State. I want Trevion Henderson because of that explosiveness. Like when you saw Jameer Gibbs, he has explosiveness like that. Yeah, you compare that with a Rico Gathers. I'm cool with the two back system, but just like you said, they dropped the ball 2 years in a row when you kind of got running backs. You went and drafted that tight end. Now I don't know if that was a Mike McCarthy thing that he wanted to get that damn tight end, but you could have got Devon Chain in the second round. You could have got a running back right then. You could have got those guys. That's what I'm saying. And now, because you traded for that fourth round pick and Jonathan Mingo, do I know if the Cowboys are going to say, hey, well, we got a young guy who's 23 years old or Ole Miss who think we got the world of potential? Because I can see Stephen Jones saying that type of thing. He's got the world potential. So maybe we don't draft a receiver as high because they did it with Zeke. When they brought Zeke over, they didn't touch the running back because they felt like we're good at the running back position. That was a mistake. So, do you think they do that again with them picking up Mingo with the fourth round pick, and they say, well, we don't get an explosive receiver. Now we're just going to let Mingo develop.
no, I think that the Mingo experiment is a great piece of information that tells us that the Cowboys have a good chance of spending one of their premium resources on a wide receiver to package with CD Lamb. So I would, if they don't, I think that they're making a mistake. And if they don't look to try to find a fresh leg running back in there, I think they're making a mistake. I think that those are things that the Cowboys need to do. We'll let them see what they do before we judge them on it. But I feel like that the Cowboys, they have just going back to Jerry Jones things. I just don't think that the meddling influence is nearly anywhere close to what people think it is. And I think if it is, Mike McCarthy's a sucker, and he should have never been the coach in the first place if he's just lets that happen. And the second part of it is if
But
Jerry
isn't
Jones,
isn't 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 meddling, Danny? If you bring a Mike McCarthy over as coach and you know he wants to play call and you're like, no, this is our guy. Isn't that meddling? Saying this is no, you're going to come in with this
yeah,
person.
yeah,
Isn't
it
that
is.
meddling?
Yes, it is.
And isn't that control? You're not giving your coach the total control that he really wants. If you're already saying no, you're going to come in with him, but you're going to come in on our terms.
Absolutely, it is. I don't want to make any mistake
So
about that. I mean, that's meddling. And then
no,
Jerry Jones, and I've said this before, he is involved. That's just the way it is. Now, if you're going to ask me about, did I think Jerry Jones make the right decision in keeping Kellen Moore and letting Mark McCarthy reset his staff? I say yeah. And Mike McCarthy's coaches are sitting home watching football right now. Jerry Jones
I
is
seen
playing.
that. I
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
that tweet. I seen that
So
tweet.
you're not
I,
going to hand
I
me.
don't disagree with that. But you can also say this too, Danny, that Kellen Moore is going went to a. We're talking about organizations here now, and you're talking about the front office, who you definitely back. I don't hate the front office. I don't like what they do. Like I said, they're too comfortable, in my opinion. There's nobody to push them. And here's the problem: they can do whatever they want because if they make a mistake, nobody is firing them, Danny. That's the problem with I have with my opinion. You see the Philadelphia Eagles, you see the Washington Commanders, you see these other teams, the Denver Broncos, where they said, we don't care. I don't care about Russell Wilson, that $40 million. I want him gone. We need to do this. And the reset was boom, you're right back in the playoffs. Dallas will say, oh, okay, that's good what they did, but we're going to do it this way. That's comfortable. That means we're going to do it the slow way. Yes, it might be the economic way. Yes, you might not be in no salary cap hell, but that slow build, you're having wasting years on your players. The NFL ain't no NBA. Okay. Guys in NFL don't last that long. So you have to win now every year. You have to be on the fire to win every year. That doesn't mean you go broke every year, but that does mean that every year you're coming with the anticipation of we need to come in here, we're putting everything we got to win even if it's we can be economically to do this, but we still have to do that. I don't see that in free agency with the Cowboys, and it's not happening. And see, that's my issue because as I said before, you've seen the NFL. You just saw what happened with Dak Prescott. You signed him to that contract. He's out for the year. Michael Parsons, he could be the greatest player ever. It could take one injury, he could never play again. So that's why you have to play and you have to understand that they should know this. So they should be able to attack it. This year was a throwaway year. This didn't have to be a lame duck season, and it was because you let all those guys walk. You didn't adequately price it, and then you wanted to spin us to us that it's Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. When you know damn well this team was not construed to go any farther with that team that was right now. That team was not better than the 2023 team.
Yeah, there's nothing they could have done in the offseason that would have made the Cowboys be playing right now. It just wouldn't have happened. Um, and I think that the problems that some people have with Jerry Jones with are just things that we have no control over, James. It's just like he's the owner, he's going to be
Right.
involved. That's I would love to say
Do you
that.
feel a little bit that though? What I'm saying as far as the comfortability with the front office, how they just sit back, and because they sit back, Um, like I said, when I see Kellen Moore over there in Philadelphia, yes, he's doing well, but you know what? They got one of the best offensive lines in football. They got a top-notch receiving core. They got Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Jalen Hurts he's a pretty good quarterback. So yeah, Kellen Moore is going to look good in that too, I think, because he's not a bad coordinator. But you get what I'm saying? For you to I just feel like they're isolating and saying we kind of want our guy to come back here and do it here. And if he does, then we're going to mold him back to where we want. And to me, isn't that meddling again? Because they're going to say, Kellen Moore, we homegrown you, so we're gonna kind of let you do what you want, but we're gonna have the heavy influence on everything too because we made you.
I want to say this, and I want to be clear on this: is I I don't think that the Joneses ever sit back, or I don't think they ever prioritize some their own achievement versus winning. So everything they do, whether they
Mhm.
don't do things or do things, is because they believe, right or wrong, that it is what is going to help them win the most. I strongly
Mhm.
believe that. People don't because they're like, well, they don't seem like they're trying to win. I don't buy that at all. This is just how they think they need to do it. And
Mhm.
they lost out on Kellen Moore because they went a different direction. McCarthy, not their guy.
Right.
McCarthy was a retread that won a Super Bowl, so they gave up, their guy to get McCarthy. And I think when now they're thinking about things, they're going to do what's best. They think is best for the team. Now, if they hire Kellen Moore, it's not because hey, that's our guy. It's because they really believe in Kellen Moore and that he will help them win. I always feel that the Cowboys are trying to do their best to win. And no one will ever convince me otherwise. Jerry Jones, if there was no salary cap, the Cowboys would be Super Bowl champions because he would spend whatever he could to make this team win. They're not saving money from they're not pocketing the cap savings like some sort of bonus you get from your company if you could cost cut. It's not like that at all. They're using the resources the way they think is needed to win. Now, is it what fans want? No. Are they way inactive in free agency? Absolutely. That's just not how they roll. But at no point will the Cowboys make a decision that is going to be uh, is not directed in any direction other than what they think will make this team a winner. Whether they're right, I mean, obviously they haven't been, but that is what they're trying to do. And I want that to be very clear. And if people don't agree with me with that, that's fine. But absolutely, this Cowboys team, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, they are trying to win.
Okay. Well, I can we can kind of end it that because I didn't want to keep you past the hour, so I definitely appreciate your time. But I do want to ask you a quick question on Stephen Jones. What's your thoughts on Stephen Jones, and do you feel good about the future with him going forward as the leader? Once Jerry possibly is not the guy.
I do. I mean, people aren't gonna like to hear that either, but I think that the way he manages things is responsible. I think that
It's
he's
conservative.
it's conservative. I think that they invest in the right investments. I think they go about it the right way. I like the way that they use the cap. I mean, I honestly think that Stevens another one of the reasons. It's not just Jason Garrett's influence or Will McClay's influence. It's also Stephen Jones' influence, and he's
Hmm.
really toned down. If Jerry Jones was still running things, I mean, we would just be always fighting dead money and cap issues and doing all kinds of stuff. We would be like the Cleveland Browns and the Eagles and have all this money, in the future that's already accounted for. It would be really messy. And would we still be winning? Probably not. So I do think that Stephen Jones does a good job. I know he gets a lot of hate because of his frugalness, but you know what? I mean, there's advantages to being cautious, and I think that the
What's the
Cowboys do.
advantage?
Well, if the less dead money that you eat, the more resources you have to build your team, and the more you invest in players that you know about, which is the players they draft, the more likely you're going to be able to get a better return on your investment. So I think that the way they spend and the way they choose to spend is actually a very efficient way, and it's like it's really if you model like people that have money and make money and investment stuff, they're very responsible in how they go about their budgeting their money. And I think Stephen Jones does that really well. So that's just my opinion on that. And I also know that free agency, like I said, is a losing investment. And so the teams that do the best in trying to limit that and dipping their toe in that, it end up having more success. So um, yeah, so I'm playing the numbers, and Stephen Jones has a good grasp of the numbers. He's a very bright guy, so I mean, there's no doubt that Stephen Jones is. I mean, he's not just willy nilly doing things. I mean, he
Yeah,
knows what he's doing.
he definitely knows what he's doing on the financial aspect. But I don't, I feel like my thing with Stephen Jones is, with the player personnel part, financial aspect, he's great with the budget and the money. I ain't gonna lie, he's great with that. But player personnel part of it, I never seen you be a scout. I never seen you go out there.
No,
Yeah,
he's
you have
not.
no idea.
He's not.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
yeah,
but Jane, I mean, do you agree the Cowboys do a good job evaluating players? You said that they're above average, right?
yeah.
So
I will agree, but I'm gonna give that more to Will McClay. I'm not gonna give that to
fine.
Stephen Jones.
So then the Joneses are hands off then because whatever they're doing, whoever's doing it, they're doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean they picked the right guy, but I also feel like they picked a guy who's going to say, well, I don't need to be a GM. They picked the right type of person who that could do that because most people would not do what he was doing probably in that aspect that they want him to do because most people would want a little bit more control because yes, Will McClay goes out and makes those things, but he doesn't make the ultimate calls they do, so he doesn't have the total control like
So
a GM or
you should
anything like
ask
that.
yourself why is McClay sticking around? I think that would be a very good question for people to think about. Why is
Because
McClay
they're
sticking
gonna
around?
because why would you stay around if you can come into a situation? Because if he goes to anywhere else, I've said this, if he goes to anywhere else, he's going to have a clock that's ticking. Okay, he's gonna have a clock that's ticking over at. Let's say if he went to San Diego Chargers, you got a clock. You may have did all that stuff in Dallas, but you got a clock. And if it ain't working in a few years, they're gonna say, "Oh, well, that was a fraudulent over there in Dallas Cowboys. We're gonna fire you." I don't feel like he has that. I feel like there's a comfortability there. I think he's built something there with them, and there's a comfortability, and I think they like what he brings to the table. And he feels like I don't have to have a title because they're not gonna push me anywhere on that. So I'm in a comfortable space here. Whereas if I went to another organization, I wouldn't be in that comfortable space. So I believe that's why he stays here. And I believe they like it because he doesn't want to say, I'm a GM. And that's the way Jerry wants it. He wants somebody to say, I'm in full control and not you. And Will McClay wants something where, like, hey, I can maneuver and do what I want. And I don't have to worry about my job really being threatened because I don't have to worry about saying I want to be a GM or anything like that.
Oh, I think if Will McClay wasn't doing his job well, I think he would probably not even the Cowboys would have moved on from him. So I
I'm not saying Will McClay is not good at his job. What I'm saying is he's still it's just like if you worked at a job with a boss that you knew that if you left somewhere else, yeah, my job is appreciated here. I go somewhere else, the clock might be ticking. They don't know me as well. They don't know who I am as well. They're just gonna look at what I did over there. So if I don't hit those numbers like I did over here, they may be quicker to let me go. That's what I'm talking about. Whereas in my old job, I know my owner and my boss. We really mess with each other. So I'm gonna get more grace with him and I'm gonna feel more comfortably do what I can with this owner, whereas somebody else who I don't know, where the clock may be ticking. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying Will McClay's not good at his job.
No, I know what you're saying, but I think Will McClay wasn't always that didn't always hold the position he had. There was we all remember the 2013 fiasco, and I think who I can't remember the guy's name offhand, but I'll tell you what, he don't have a job anymore. So the Cowboys, if you don't do your job, Jones will fire you. There is pressure on
Mhm.
Will McClay. He's not like they don't have I mean, the lifelong job there that they're not keeping him there because he's family and he's keeping there because the Cowboys draft well. So Will McClay wants to be there. I think that's the point I'm trying to make is like if Will McClay thought there was some toxic stuff going on and that he was always being under to have the leg swept from underneath him and there's just too much going on and they're drafting Johnny Manziel instead of Zach Martin and Paxton Lynch and so if that was going on, Will McClay wouldn't be there. So I think he recognized that he's in a good opportunity. And so that's another thing that points to I don't think the Jones medal nearly as much as people think. I think that they really we've seen the war room stuff where like we hear the things say when they're really tough on a decision, like it was Mozzie and that offensive lineman. It's like, and we heard him say, Will, what do you think? I mean, Will is making the decision, and he said Mozzie. So I really think that that's why he's there. I think he's in a good situation, and I just think that people are a little bit too harsh on the Cowboys meddling of the front office.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think the Cowboys they meddle enough, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why they've missed the mark in these 30 years.
Well, I'll tell
I
you
seen
what.
trade.
If they win, no one's going to be caring about the meddling. I
You're
think
right. You're
that's
right,
the
but that's
reason
the key.
Cowboys haven't
That's the
won.
key, though. That's the key, though. They haven't won, and as long as that's going on, you can still thwart whatever the people are saying that, oh, well, we're going to do this way because it's going to work. Because you've had all these years to do it. Other teams have advanced that have not advanced in so many years before you. You get what I'm saying? You had the Washington Commanders. It's been the Cowboys 30 years, Washington Commanders 33 years, 91 since the last time they had won 14 games. You get what I'm saying? And they flipped the management, they flipped the ownership, and then they're right back at it. So I don't care what anybody's going to tell me about how much the front office is doing good when I keep on seeing the front office of the Eagles year in and year out. They might spend a little bit, yes, but they're competing. Guess what? If they win today, they're right back in the NFC Championship competing for a Super Bowl again. And Dallas is not. So front office can keep on saying that they're doing it the right way, and Steve Jones is being conservative and frugal. We're not overspending this and that. But other teams who ain't going there, the Cincinnati Bengals, who have one of the worst managements, and Mike Brown got Joe Burrow, they got out the way and they went to a Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but they went. So these other teams that are not who are never winning are coming out of nowhere. The Detroit Lions. Yes, you just said it. Yeah, they may have lost that game, but they're still in a good place. They'll be right back competing next year. You get what I'm saying? Dallas is competing, but
Well,
something always happens. Something has always happened, whether it's Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, Dave Campo, Jane Gailey, something is always happening. And it can't just always be the players playing bad. It can't be the coaches always coaching bad. The front office has to take account for some of this stuff too.
yeah, well, I can't argue with people who feel that way. If I mean, if it's always about the results and only the results, then the Cowboys are not doing things the right way. But I would have, encourage people to look past the results. And I will say this, as a fan of a long time, I do have some evidence of Jerry Jones winning a championship before. So I know that it's doable. It's not like it's never going to happen. He just needs to have the right people around him. And I feel like the Cowboys can get there. I'm not ever discouraged. Like we have no chance with this guy as owning the team. I don't buy that at all. I think we do have a chance. Um, but this is the cards we're dealt, and we don't have control over those things. So we have to think about solutions that the Cowboys do have control over, and I do think that the solutions are there. We got to figure out what they are. And right now, I think not having Mike McCarthy is a good step. I'll be interested to see who our coach is, and and what that means. And it could be where we can be in purgatory for another 3-4 years. I don't know, and that's just something we're gonna have to see. But we'll see. I still believe in this team. I think they put together a good roster, so they certainly have a chance. I'm not discouraged, but it'd be interesting to see what this offseason looks like for us.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting to see. I definitely appreciate your time, Dan. Like I said, we did a lot of back and forth to finally get you back on. So I think my guy, Boss Cowboys, reached out to you. Hopefully, you'll be able to do a show with that, and I'll definitely would love to be able to watch that. But I appreciate you. I thank you for coming on. Thank you for everybody that was commenting in the comments. We had a good little crowd today because it was kind of like on the spur of the moment. But you have a good day. I'll definitely be talking on Twitter. You know I'm going to jump in on your tweets. You know I do it.
Absolutely, absolutely,
And we'll be talking
anytime
in, all right? You have a
for
great day.
sure. Thank you, James.
No problem. Take care. All right. So that was Dan Rogers of Danny Phantom, blogging of the boys. Like I said, 10 years in the game with him. Um, I appreciate Dan coming on. Like I said, we go out, we do our back and forth on Twitter. He says a lot of things that I just be like, come on, man. But it's cool. But at the end of the day, um, you know, like I said, with this front office, watching these commanders, 33 years since 91. They won 14 games in 91, went to the Super Bowl. I'm gonna tell you right now, Jaden Daniels is the truth. Hey, they're gonna be a problem. I'm still not scared of Dan Quinn. I don't care what anybody says. He always starts fast. So I didn't know they were gonna get to NFC Championship, but it felt weird. I'm gonna be honest with you because Washington was playing with nothing to lose this year. New ownership, new general manager, new coach, new quarterback, new everything. Like George Carmi, who was on the best of enemies, I know he's going crazy. Washington Commanders content creator, shout out to you, dog. Washington Commanders fan said that Washington was playing with house money this whole season. I agreed. Washington was playing with house money all year, and that's why I said they win 8 to 9 games this year. I didn't think they would go to the playoffs. I didn't think that, and I definitely didn't think they would do this. But I did say from the very beginning, just like I said the year before, we're watching them. I said it's going to be contingent on their quarterback. When they had Sam Howell and they were trying to push him as the next guy, even though he was a fourth rounder, and they were trying to push him as the guy. He had a couple big games, and then they were saying Sam Howell could be this, can be that. And then guess what? At the longer Sam Howell played, you saw the warts, and Sam Howell was not that guy. So I said they were going to go as Sam Howell went. As soon as Sam Howell, you found out what he was, they fell flat on their face. Jaden Daniels is different. I know it's only a year, but to me, he's like C.J. Stroud. Yeah, C.J. Stroud had a phenomenal first year, but you knew C.J. Stroud was the guy. I knew C.J. Stroud was the guy when I watched here at Ohio State because he was one of the better quarterbacks coming out better than these other guys that the Braxton Millers and Fields Haskins, he was better than them guys. He just was to me. And he came in with Houston, and even though there was a regression this next year, you still know C.J. Stroud is a dog, right? You know C.J. Stroud is going to be in the conversation for top quarterbacks in the next 10 years. He is like he's just naturally a good quarterback. Um, and I didn't know what Jaden Daniels was. I watched him at LSU. I didn't know he was like that. I watched him, but his size, but he can throw the ball, dog. He can just throw it. I hate Washington. I can't stand Washington. I ain't scared of no Dan Quinn, but they got a quarterback over there that's he can keep them in games. Um, yeah, the Lions may have blew it, but I'm sorry. It's not just the Lions blew it. They played Jared Goff threw bad interceptions, but did you see Jaden Daniels was the difference for the Commanders, dog? Like nobody can tell me he wasn't. He was the difference. Jaden Daniels was the difference for the Commanders all year. If they got him, it changed their whole complexion. He's a franchise guy. He can throw the ball. Like when I saw RG3 come in, RG3 was, I watched RG3. He was at Baylor. He could throw the long ball. You feel me? And he was real athletic, but he was not a guy that could just dissect you throwing the ball over the middle, just take you down the field and just dissect you. That was not RG3. He was a long ball guy. He hit you with a long ball. He's athletic, make plays out the pocket after he's getting rushed. That's what RG3 was. Jaden Daniels don't have to run. He can stay in the pocket and kill you in the pocket. His passes in is ridiculous. You get what I'm saying? Um, Ben Johnson, he wasn't that bad. They had 30 damn near they was going back and forth to them. They was scoring left and right. That defense, they had a lot of injuries. I ain't gonna give them an excuse, but they had a lot of injuries. They kept on getting hurt. But that play calling, Jaden Daniels was dissecting that defense, dog. It's just the truth. I don't know if y'all want to believe that. It wasn't no Ben Johnson. It was that damn they had turnovers and Jaden Daniels every time they got the ball, they couldn't stop them. Period. I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one, John Burgess. I'm gonna plead the fifth on that. You know what I'm saying? Um, but I said I'm gonna give an epic rant if I see the Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles in there, and I don't care what Dan Rogers says, Danny Phantom. And this ain't no hate on him, me talking behind his back or nothing like that. But I don't care what he says. You can say what you want with the front office. You're comfortable, you're frugal, you're conservative. Yes, you don't spend. Yes, you peel back Jared from spending. If you didn't control him, you'd be spending. Okay, that's fine. But these other teams keep passing you, and y'all keep on saying this slow foot way is gonna work. These other teams are passing you. Commanders haven't been there. The Bengals hadn't been there. Who else? Who else hasn't been there forever? I know some other teams that haven't been there. Rams, they came out of nowhere when they won the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Rams won the Super Bowl. Um, shit, Baltimore. You know what I mean? What's good, David? But I'm saying, you said you want an offensive minded coach, the lunatic. Y'all want Kellen Moore? All I'm saying with Kellen Moore is just, I just feel like he's just what they want, and I just don't think Kellen Moore is a leader of men. I think he's a coordinator. Every coordinator is not a head coach. That's my thing. I just don't think that Kellen Moore is a head coach. Will be a great head coach, and he'll just be something in Dallas. Like he couldn't go nowhere else to be a head coach and be good. You know what I mean? He'll just be Dallas. That's why I made the comparison to Jason Garrett point two, 2.0. He'll have every chance to be a good head coach in Dallas, but let him go somewhere else and let's see if he'll be a good head coach. Did Jason Garrett leave the Dallas Cowboys after having a so-so career? Did he go somewhere and be a great coach? No, he went to the Giants, and that's only because he had familiarity with them because he played with them. And what happened? Got fired. Not a head coach. Has Jason Garrett coached anywhere else anymore as a head coach? We didn't say Garrett couldn't be a coordinator. Didn't say he couldn't be a coordinator, but did he? Is he a head coach anywhere else now? This would be the same with Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore wouldn't be a head coach somewhere else and be a great head coach. I don't believe that. I don't believe he's a leader of men. I believe would give the opportunity to be a leader of men in Dallas because it's what they want. So if it's an owner that wants you to be the guy, they like you, they believe in you, they want you to be the guy, then they're gonna go ahead and kind of let everybody else know this is our guy, so you better listen to him, right? So even if that supervisor, you looking at him like he a goofy, you're gonna listen to him. You're gonna listen to what he says because that boss is telling you you better because this is who I picked. So you better listen to him. We've seen that time and time again. How wouldn't this be with Kellen Moore? You know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying about with Kellen Moore. Is their handpicked guy. So and I said he would be given the keys. And if the Eagles win today and they're playing for a championship, do you really think to me they're going to let Kellen Moore, if he wants the opportunity to coach the Dallas Cowboys now, if they go to a championship game or they go to a Super Bowl, that Dallas wouldn't want him back? Dan Quinn, who was your coach, is in the championship game, and Kellen Moore wins, he's in the championship game, and you get an opportunity to get one of those guys back to play against you. Why would they go and get an Aaron Glenn then? Although I love Aaron Glenn, I would not mind him being a coach. Why doesn't it make sense? I said this since 2019 that Kellen Moore was going to be the coach because I told you they groomed him the same way they did Garrett. And even Danny, who loves them Cowboys front office, agrees. They're grooming him the same way. So how is he not going to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? That's all I'm going to say. How is Kellen Moore if he wants the job? If Kellen Moore says I want to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, how do they not say you're not the coach? Who are they going to take over him when they never wanted him to leave? When they made him stay, when Mike McCarthy came on, when they brought him in, they picked him up, and just like Garrett was Garrett drafted or whatever, but he was a undrafted free agent. Like it's everything like Garrett. I mean, that's debatable. CB4L 2023. Dak had a career year, and I ain't saying nothing about McCarthy, but he had a career year with McCarthy. 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, had one of his best years ever. That was last year. The offense was good too. So I'm not saying that the offense won't be good with Kellen Moore. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is Kellen Moore gonna be a leader of men. That's what I want to know. He's their handpicked guy like Garrett. Garrett was an okay coach. And I think if they give Kellen Moore the opportunity, yes, Kellen Moore will win games here in Dallas. But when it comes down to it, they ain't gonna win the big ones. Just watch and see. I'm trying to tell you, like the offense will be good. They'll score points. I can bring up. This is what it's going to sound like. Listen to this right here. This is the same thing with Jason Garrett. This is Jason Garrett and Kellen Moore in a nutshell, right here. If you have nothing to listen to me with this, listen to this right here. Same thing with Kellen Moore. Jason Garrett, 41. Kellen Moore is 35 now. Okay, he took the job like probably about what, in 2019, so about 4 years. So he took the job when he was like 31. So Garrett's 41. Kellen Moore's 31. Garrett, this is before they signed Jason Garrett when he was being courted by the Falcons and the Baltimore Ravens. He was their boy wonder. Garrett is a veteran of only 3 seasons as an NFL assistant. He was hired by the Cowboys as an offensive coordinator in 2007 after 2 seasons on the Miami Dolphins staff as a quarterbacks coach. One season, Kellen Moore had a quarterbacks coach with Dallas, and then they made him the offensive coordinator. In 2007, and this is what it says about Kellen. This is what this is about Kellen Moore too. Now, in 2007, He presided over a unit that statistically ranked number three in the league. Now, the Kellen Moore people will say he's had top offenses. He's had top five offenses. He's had top five offenses. That's what they were saying about Garrett too. In 2007, he presided over units that are statistically rated number three in the league. He had top offenses too, but but struggled in the final month of the year and in Sunday's playoff loss. That's what you're gonna be. That's what we're saying about Kellen Moore. But struggled when it mattered the most, final month of the year, and in the Sunday's playoff loss. Did Kellen Moore's offense struggle in that playoff loss in 2021? I know the whole team did, but did it struggle? Yep. When it mattered the most in 2019, or was it 2019 or 2021, when we played the Cardinals and we were supposed to win that game and the offense struggled? Like, so it's the same thing. I'm telling you, it's the same thing. Same thing I just read. It's the same thing with Kellen Moore. High-powered offense, score a lot of points, get a lot of yards. But when it matters most, is that team winning them big games, even though you had all them damn yards? No. And does it struggle when you play them really good teams? Yes. And does it when it matters the most and you need that big playoff win, does the offense come through? No. It's the truth. I mean, I can go to games where the Cowboys struggle. We struggle against good teams. Dallas struggle against good teams. I mean, I've been looking at schedules. I mean, I can go on schedules. I was looking at this free agent where the Cowboys don't pick up free agents, and whenever they pick up a free agent, just like James Washington, was that a good pickup? When you had re-signed Michael Gallup, who had a tore up knee, and you signed James Washington, who never played with your team. You know what I'm saying? I know, and that's not a gamble, right? Because he don't cost no money. So that's what I'm talking about. Your free front office, it's always minimal risk. When you look at it, when they're free agents, it's always minimal risk. That's fine. You don't take minimal risk, but you're going to get passed up by these teams who do take risks. And yes, they may take the risk and fall foul in their face, but if they're a smart team and still aggressive team, they'll come right back at it. The example is the Rams. Like, I don't know how you can counteract and say the Cowboys front office way they're doing it is cool. Yes, they're saving money, but and they're in a good financial place. But as I said to Dan, you're in a good financial place, but what is that doing? What has that done for you as a team? It's kept you competitive, but did it take you over the hump? You're gonna have to take a risk here and there to get you over the hump. You doing it the same way conservatively, and we'll just slow cook it. Yeah, you'll stay competitive. I never said that won't happen. I'm not. People need to listen to what I be talking about. That way, you'll be competitive. You'll win 10 games, 11 games. You'll be right there. You'll be that middle. You'll be that middle edge team. But the upper echelon teams are gonna beat you, and it's been proven because they make one or two more moves that you don't. Shout out to my dog, Dwayne Brown, with a $10 holler. Says Jared's promises Cullen the job, but Mike McCarthy's job was done, contract was done. What he's doing now is trying to put a staff around him, but I hope not. I believe he is. If he isn't, because we're hearing about, and I appreciate the $10 holler. We already hear about if Kellen Moore is the coach, Jason Witten could possibly be on the staff. That's basically getting them the Cowboy way, the people they want, which is fine. But that staff ain't gonna win it. I don't believe it. Hey, I'm not one to sit there and not say Dak don't do nothing. So that ain't me. I just got killed on Twitter earlier today. So I don't be sitting there making apologies for Dak Prescott neither. Um, you know, I, I have my own feelings about him. I ain't gonna discuss all that. But trust and believe. A lot of crybabies on Twitter. Um, Not crybabies. I ain't probably no crybabies because I love my peoples, but not my peoples. But there are some certain crybabies that always be crying their little asses off about Dak Prescott. That don't want to hear their little crying ass. So just shut up. Nobody wants to hear you crying, always bumping your guns about Dak Prescott on Twitter. All I do is say what I feel about it. But then you get the little crybabies, and it ain't my people, so it ain't them. But um, Dak and we some sorry fake Cowboys fans, because they don't like Dak Prescott, fake Cowboys. Shut up! I don't want to hear none of that shit no more. I'm getting tired of people telling me I'm a fake ass Cowboys fan because I feel like Dak needs to be better in big games. I don't feel like he's a big game quarterback. I feel like he's a good quarterback. Maybe you got to get the right coach. I don't know. And I say that. And that's just my opinion on it. I don't say it's a fact. It's just what I believe. And then you always get these people want to jump on Twitter and want to say that the dumbest shit, like you ain't a real fan or something, or oh you ain't a full supporter, or you don't know football. Man, shut the fuck up. Excuse my language. Just be irritating me at times when I be hearing that shit. Like, bro, I know the game just as much as a lot of you people out there, dog. Like, I'm not no damn NFL coach or nothing like that, but I definitely put in work, a lot more work than y'all have, a lot more work than y'all have on the field, with players, whether it's youth, anything, a lot more work. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to you, B Bird. You know what I mean for the 199 holla. Appreciate that, nigga. Appreciate that. But yeah, but it is what it is. We'll see what's going on. But you just gets annoying. My take on it is the front office. Um, I I I don't know. I'm getting ready to get off here because I gotta go take care of some things. Or I would. I'll definitely let you jump in on a live again. When I go live, what I'll do is I'll have a group live where people just can come in and chat. I really didn't create this, but I'll definitely do it next time. I'm just about to get off here, so I apologize. But you'll be able to vent again because you know I'm venting because I just get tired of you know Well, I think the biggest thing I get tired of when I'm with this Dallas Cowboy thing right now, as I get ready to get off here, my biggest thing I'm tired of right now, the Dallas Cowboy community is it's like you ain't allowed to really say nothing. It's like it's low hanging fruit if you blame the front office. So you can't say anything about Jared and how they're doing it because it ain't gonna change. Stop talking about it. I get frustrated with that because it's like you keep seeing these other teams that are making these turnovers within the organization and they don't have the small dysfunction or they don't have the dysfunctional things. And stop telling me there's not dysfunction. So why did these things happen? Is the team cursed because Dallas had enough good teams in 30 years to make it to at least a championship game? Why do things keep happening? Is it every coach? Is it every player? If we don't blame the front office for anything, every coach, then every coach we get just ain't good. You make the wrong choices on the coaches, then that's front office fault then too. Making wrong choices on the players because the players ain't doing it because it's always something that keeps Dallas out from doing it in these 30 years. But these other organizations make a quick turnaround, make a quick move here and there, bam, they right at it. It don't happen with Dallas. Why? Can somebody tell me that? I don't get that part. And then I am. I wish, in my opinion, um, I told people I wish Dak would have never came back because he's the firestorm. He is. Like I wish he would have went somewhere else and would have hopefully would have been able to ball out somewhere else and we could have seen it because it's just gonna be the same stuff. You know what I mean? Um, front office ain't doing enough for him, or he's got to overcome the front office. I don't know if he has time to overcome the front office. Like it just, I think it's just worse than Romo because the shit with Romo used to get on my nerves. And I thought Romo was a really good quarterback, but I didn't think he was a big game quarterback. I didn't. Like, I just felt like no matter most, he gonna do something goofy. No matter what I want to believe. And I feel certain things about that. I'm sorry. Like, I really like him. I do. I don't say get rid of Dak. I don't sit there and say I just said he should have signed somewhere else because of this goofy front office stuff. Because with the front office stuff that goes on, and I feel like he's good but not great. I just feel like that's a combination of win games but won't win the ones with the most. I just feel like there's always gonna be something. So I don't know. Just me. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know. All this stuff is just kind of crazy because you don't have any control over it, but it's just all kind of just crazy to me. Um, I just feel like there's just a lot of combinations that aren't in the right pieces, and they're just always going to be failure. We'll see though. This is a big game, James. Make sure you check out my high school interview. I'm getting right back on that grind. Before I get off here, I want to say that I'm back on my high school grind. I have a really great interview with Chucky Lanier, 6'6", 245 pound defensive end, tight end. He's still open for recruiting, 3-star athlete. Had a great interview with him about a few days ago. Wasn't getting ready to post it. So please go check out that interview. I'm back on my high school grind. Be checking that out, and we'll see what goes on from this point. All right, but this is big game.